Rabbil Alameen, wassalatu wassalamu ala ashrafil anbiya wal mursaleen, wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'in. In the name of Allah, most gracious, most merciful, praise be to Allah, the cherisher and sustainer of the worlds, and blessing to be our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, his family and his companions. Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the organizing committee, we would like to welcome to our second day of the National Seminar on Abandoned Housing Projects, Causes and Solutions, organized by IIUM, Institute of Islamic Banking and Finance, IIiBF, in collaboration and with Association of Sharia Advisors in Islamic Finance, Malaysia, ASAS. Ladies and gentlemen, to kick off this morning's program, we are pleased to invite Yang Berbahagia Professor Dr. Engku Rabiah Adawiyah binti Engku Ali from IIiBF as a moderator for special session 2, together with our panelists, Encik Nur Azam Muhammad Taib, Senior Vice President of Corporate Business Division, MBSB, and the second one, Yang Berbahagia Encik Muhammad Khairuddin Arsyad, Chief Operating Officer Bank Rakyat, and last but not least, Encik Muhammad Fikri bin Abdul Ghaffar, Head Corporate Legal Services, Maybank Islamic Berhad. Please welcome them.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Respected panelists, Encik Muhammad Khairuddin, Encik Nur Azam, and Encik Muhammad Fikri. First of all, I would like, on behalf of the organizer, to thank all the panelists for your gracious presence here, despite your busy schedule. And alhamdulillah, we are able to have with us today representatives from various Islamic banks in Malaysia. And we have yesterday heard from people from the ministry, people from the victims, as well as from the academia. So I think today it is just right for us to listen from the bankers and see what are their perspectives with regards to the problem of abandoned housing projects, and basically what they think would be the most suitable way to address the issue of abandoned housing projects according to their perspectives as bankers. So hopefully we'll be able to have a very fruitful session this morning, and I'm looking forward to have also interaction with the audience so that we can have a very thorough and also hopefully insightful discussion on this issue, which is although an old issue but a recurring issue. We're yet to see a real solution to. Okay, so according to the program book, I can see here that the first panelist who's going to be speaking would be Encik Muhammad Khairuddin Arsyad. So I will briefly introduce the panelists. Encik Muhammad Khairuddin Arsyad is now the Chief Operating Officer of Bank Rakyat Malaysia Berhad, and he was also previously are you still Chief Risk Officer as well? No, previously Chief Risk Officer of Bank Rakyat, and previously, you also the Chief Operating Officer of IIDM. Is that correct? Yeah, okay. So I would like now to invite Encik Khairuddin to go on and discuss this issue.
Okay, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. When we talk about this issue with regards to the abandoned housing project, which basically has been going on for quite some time. Just a snapshot on the overview of this particular theme. When it comes to back in February 2010, the Housing and Local Authorities Ministry declared that around 131 projects being categorized as abandoned. And definitely part of the banking institutions that involved in providing and financing to the housing project took their own initiative, and in this regard for Bank Rakyat, we established a specific department, the Rehabilitation Department, to coordinate and monitor the abandoned house projects. So to manage the activities for the secured financings such as write-off, litigations, planning, and asset disposal. So, as at July 2016, around 497 accounts involving 55 projects. This is just some statistics. in terms of the project in progress, where we talk about reviving the projects, some of it under constructions, as well as still under negotiation with the developer and regulator. And if you look at the kind of abandoned projects that we have in Malaysia, the bulk of it still in Selangor, 105, and then followed by Johor. Right. So when you look at trying to rehabilitate these abandoned projects and how to revive it, definitely it involves certain processes in terms of whether it's you talk about the court case dispute, some of the cabinet actions, with regards to whether are we going to proceed with the same developer to revive the project, and if not, you have to find white knight, as well as definitely if you go to bankrupt, then you have to meet the liquidators, the receivers, how best to revive those projects. So those are the things that the bank is involving in trying to look at the solutions for the abandoned projects. So if you look at how to make the whole thing success, definitely it will involve the bank, the customer, whether it is the developer, and sometimes it is JV with the landowner, and what will be the kind of schemes that we need to involve. Certainly it will involve certain haircuts, certain additional costs, because when you talk about reviving a project, additional costs are required. You know, the raw materials increase, labor forces, and so on and so forth. And not by not least, sometimes because the existing developer already be declared bankrupt, then you need to find somebody who is willing to assume that liabilities later on to revive the whole project. You have to understand, when you talk about reviving the abandoned project, whether the project is already 10% completed, 50% completed, it is much harder to continue with the constructions, because you have to look at whether the infrastructure, the foundations that have been laid, is it still strong or not. So sometimes if you look at between new and existing project, it is much easier if it is existing, or even in a way where the completion of the project is still less than 30%. It is much easier. But if it is already 75%, the experience that we face, basically it will pose significant problem due to the project has been abandoned for some times. So there will be a lot of work needs to be done. Now, okay, this is just some statistics because of the trend of the abandoned projects from 2010 to 2015. So if you can see that the whole thing is being managed, and some of the project is going to go down, right? So now, I think those are basically some historical data and some what we have done previously. Going forward, okay, I think going forward is the one that we are looking at. Now, for us, when you look at the retail banking, when you are just providing any financing, you have to understand, one, the contractual obligations is basically between the consumer or the buyer with the banker. It does not involve in any way to the housing project, right? So if you are looking in terms of coming out with a different kind of contracts that binding the whole things, then the issue at hand will be, one, does the developer allow that? That's the first thing. Because if you can recall, when you first started the house financing back in 1990 or early 80s, there is what they call it novation agreement. And the novation agreement has been stopped due to the, I think, the resistance from the developer association, because in a way it gives some sort of like authorities to the bank to be involved in the project monitoring, right? So that's something that need to look at. Some of us looking at the issue of probably apart from the one that we are being done previously, the by the IT or the community Murabaha, some looking at the musyarakah, mutanakisah. Then the issue at hand would be the issues that involve on the land code. That's one of the things. Yes, those particular things would have some binding of tripartite parties, but unless there is something arrangement that has been agreed by the tripartite parties, that's okay. So the issue at hand is still the existing facilities is just involved for two parties, customers and the bank. So once the obligation or the signing of the particular agreement, at the end of the day, for the bank, we have already provided the financing, regardless whether the asset has been delivered or not, you still owe us. So going forward, in a way, when you look at the, I think all banks have been enhancing their credit underwriting to ensure that when we provide financing and financing to the customer, we look at the kind of projects and whether the developer is considered as a tier 1, tier 2 or tier 3 categories. This is just to mitigate the issues of competition risk, right? Because at the end of the day, we don't want to the extent that the customer would face this issue. We want to ensure that the developer will be able to deliver the houses to the customers. And at the same time, for bank, when we provide corporate financing or bridging financing to the developer, right? So in a way, we try to tie it up with the end financing facility. So in this case, if a bank provides a bridging as well as the end financing, it allows the bank to monitor the projects to ensure that the project is being completed and to ensure that when it comes to the costing, it is being monitored that the cost is being used properly. So the completion risk hopefully will be mitigated 100% in a sense. I think Azam will be sharing more on that particular part, right? In terms of the recoveries, of course, from time to time we look at the status of the customer. In this case, we look at whether the ability. It's not that we can just say that when it is abandoned, the bank straight away asking for the principal profit. But the normal process for us in Meraya, we look at the conditions of the customer, the ability for them to pay, because we have to take recognition that yes, they are in a shape where, in a situation where they don't want to be in that situation at the first place. So to the bank, so how you strike a balance between trying to get back the money that you have paid, but at the same time you must have the empathy to look at the customer, looking at the conditions that they have. So the treatment given to the customer sometimes will be different. When you are a single earner, or basically in terms of your income, monthly income, how much that you have. So those things will be taken into considerations when you are coming out with repayment scheme back or whatever the thing is, taking into considerations the conditions of the customer. So in a nutshell, what was happening with regards to the border projects, has been it has changed tremendously from the day when we have a lot of these abandoned projects back in 1980s and 1990s. A lot of legislation has been improved. A lot of banks has taken cognizance in terms of the things being made to ensure that such cases, if it happens, it can be dealt better. And I think we have to take note that compared to last time, the cases that are happening right now is probably not as many as what was happening before. It's just probably certain thing when it is a small developer doing a very small scale, and they are thought the kind of experience that they have. I don't think the one that having this abandoned projects currently, those who are we calling the tier 1, tier 2 developer, these are probably sole proprietor and probably just involved in probably less than 2 years or 3 years experience in projects. So I think I'll stop now, just giving some of the views from the banker. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Cik Muhammad Khairuddin, for sharing with us some of his views and insights pertaining to the issue. I will not make any comments. I will just allow the other panelists to also say their views before I open up the session for discussion. So the next panelist would be Encik Nur Azam Muhammad Taib, who is currently the Senior Vice President of Corporate Business Division of MBSB. Encik Nur Azam had 26 years experience in various... says here 26 years in various overseas and local banks in Malaysia, and has been working with MBSB since 2010. Yes, please.
Assalamualaikum, all my beloved participants. Okay, when the people mentioned that I've been in banking for 26 years, I hope the numbers are commensurate with the experience. Okay. Basically, earlier, Encik Muhammad Khairuddin has already mentioned about what are the measures to be taken when the project's already been abandoned. I wanted to bring the audience to the earlier stage, how the project turn or become abandoned. So these are some pictures that my staff put in. I think it's quite ugly. That's why I put it very, very fast. I don't want it to stay on so long. Okay, basically, the scope that I wanted to bring for this morning's discussion is actually how banks or financial institutions participate in ensuring that we are able to minimize the construction risk that the developers are doing. How banks are able to help them to minimize. Of course, risk of constructions cannot be eliminated at all, but we have to put some measures to ensure that will not be will be managed as well as can be mitigated. So we believe, I think most of the banks also believe that the causes of the projects to be turned to abandoned come into two phases. The first one is pre-development, meaning that during planning stage, the developer planning to have a development. I think that is also critical for a start. And then, of course, after that, there will be post. On the pre-development, the first one will be a lot of developers. I hope there's none of developers here behave that way. Always come to the banker saying that my project is superb. I've got a lot of buyers waiting list. The moment I intend to launch, there's a 3-4 days of people lining up on sales. So it's all positive, but they are not wrong to have this behavior, because being a businessman, they should have this behavior, confidence in their projects. But we as a banker, we need to put back the situation into a real situation. That's why the first one that I think most of my colleagues here agree that the costs is actually unrealistic cost that is being presented by developers. to have a hyperlink. How do I do that? I should have registered last night, but I didn't. Okay, actually I have a hyperlink. I want to share with some of the participants. It's so nice because it's so small. Basically, these are some very summary costing that the bankers normally looks at. Actually, when we do credit underwriting, it will be very detailed. I think you guys doesn't want to have a look at that. But these are very summary that we always do. Normally, the total development cost will come into, the component will be the land cost itself, the site clearing, the infrastructure cost, piling, building constructions, and don't forget the statutory payment, contribution costs, professional fees, all this. So what happens is that when developers present this costing to most of financial institutions, there's a two type of behavior. The top one, pointing here. Okay, the top one is actually the revenue to be generated from the sales of the projects. The bottom part is the cost. The normal situation is that developers will be overconfident in terms of the sales price that they're going to have. And on the cost, they believe that they can get the costs cheaper. They have their own lombong pasir lah, dia ada supplier besi dia dah lama lah. So end up they will have a huge GP, that they present to us. However, I think now some of the banks they have either engaged external valuers or QS or even a project management team, or some of the banks they have their internal who are going to relook, verify this number and put into a realistic study, so that what will be the developers' forecast in terms of GP, as well as what will be our forecast, the bank's forecast. So we just want to put reality checks on this. This is very important because if we don't do verification on this, let's say we assume a GP of the project is huge, so we are very happy to give financing, and we are happy to also come together with the developers to be partners to go on with the development. But suddenly the cost is actually higher than the actual one. So the GPs become very thin, Normally the project will run 2-3 years. Okay, 2-3 years. Along the years, I'm getting excited already. the adrenaline getting, because these are the cases that I've been facing every single day. When the cost going up along the development, the GP that they forecast actually is very thin. So there's not enough cash flow to come in to allow the project to go on. So there will be a cash flow crisis there. So that's why sometimes you can see that after 50% of the project, 50% of the projects, the project gets slowed down, the supplier or the building supplier cannot get paid because of this. Because they forecast huge GP, but the actual GP is very thin. Sales did not come in on time to support this. So that's why reality check on the cost is very important. Can somebody help me going back to the earlier one? Oh, I also thank you. Sorry, guys. The third one. Yes. Okay, those are the unrealistic costs. The second one that most of the banks will look at is that the developers or the contractors itself. Okay, the developers or the contractors itself. We wanted to ensure that at any point of time, the contractors or the developers will not have long list of jobs. We want to make sure that their capabilities, their workmanship, their team match with the number of projects that they're going on. This happened not only to the small timer, but it also sometimes happen to tier 2, tier 1. They are so engrossed because they are so big. I think you guys, I don't want to mention some names, but there's a few. They are taking jobs in the KLIE. They also have a development in southern, local. They also have development overseas. So end up, the resources has been scarce, I mean, the resources is scarce, so they have to move their resources in terms of human capital, in terms of their funding from one project to another. So they'll bring if they, let's say, one of the projects face sales difficulty, face cash flow problems, they will tie into the rest. They start pushing their fund from project A to project B, project B to project C. So this will lead to a cost, fund leaking from one project to another. The third one is actually on the low acuity. What happens is that normally, the low acuity. Okay, this is very simplified component of fund requirement for the projects. Actually, there's a lot of detail, but I just think it's very simple. Okay, from the total GDC of the projects, normally there will be a shareholders' equity, they own the capital. There will be a debt portion, that is actually the borrowings from financial institutions. And as well, there will be sales proceeds from the sales of the units. These are the three main These are the three main components of cash flow that's coming to fund the projects. So what happens is that normally developers will try to minimize their capital participation. They will be very confident to their sales. Okay, they will get the borrowing from the financial institutions, and then they say that I'm launching it and I've got a long list of buyers. It's just waiting for the APDL to come up. Then I can sign SPA, I can get the collection of 10%. They're so confident. But through experience, most of financial institutions will still want capital injection by the developers. Okay, I have here some examples. Normally, these portions, 100% sales. These are the assumptions that most developers make. Before lari lagi, dia kata dah sampai. But bankers put them back on track. Because kita every year ada project banded. So just rule of thumb, normally we focus before the first, let's say the project is 3 years, the first 2 years they will achieve the most sales, 60% the most. We try to sensitize it. If 60% sales for a project with GDC of 180, we'll look at the 30% shareholders equity, 50% sales proceed, and then 30% of debt portions, meaning that the borrowings. These are the normal components, the normal equations that I hope my colleagues here agree. Because sometimes different banks have different appetite, so they put it differently. And these are the common one. But when you engage top tier developers, this might be lesser. If you go on the sole prop partnerships, developers like Caroline said just now, this equity portion need to be higher, because we want to ensure that if the proceeds from sales didn't come in, at least we have enough buffer, not from the borrowing but also from the equity, to make sure that the project move on. Otherwise, it got stuck. Okay, there's a various structure that we can do. Normally, what we'll do is that we put the pre-sales conditions in the financing. For example, we put the pre-sales. Only when they reach 20% of sales, then we can disperse some portions. But every drawdown required by the developer, let's say a developer have a claim by the contractors $100. So we follow the equity portion here. Bank will disburse 30%. Sales will come in 50%. The equity from the developer must come in also 20% at every claims. So it will synchronize throughout the project. It will synchronize equity from developer, some sales proceed, as well as the borrowing from the bank. And this go on until the project's complete. If we don't do that, what we scared is that the first 40% of the project, they use bank duit. After that, after 40%, they harap sales proceed from the buyer. Itu dah habis, equity dia tak ada, dia stop kat situ. That's what happened. The bank got stuck, and the most pitiful it will be the end buyer. Because bank not only involved at the bridging side, bank also involved at the end financing side. So dua-dua boy bank kena first tu. Betul yang mana? So that's why equity portion is very important. Too long, is it? And that is during the appraisal time, meaning the time when the developers are doing the appraisal. We also looking at during the construction period. That's also very, very critical during the construction period. The first one is that poor sales. Because as I mentioned earlier, the sales proceed will be a component to help the project go on. So what happens is that when during the construction, some of the developers, they might not be focusing on sales, because they know that there's a bank at the back. So they are focusing a lot on the construction side. So their sales might not be their main focus. That could be one. Second one, poor sales will result in the locations. Locations. They are so confident, so they put the price per square foot, let's say $900. Last time, I think last 2 years, Klang Valley, 1001, 1002, everybody shocked. KL Klang Valley, man. JB 1001, JB is booming. But now, you complete a project with that amount, nobody buy. Or even if there's a buyer, there's no financial institution to finance the buyer. Okay, so the things have been put back into where they belong. So JB, Johor Bahru, market value now per square foot ranging from 400 to 550 only. Those that are having 1001, 1002 was influenced by the China party. The product, so local players come into the picture, also selling the price with the price of 1001, they got stuck there. Locations, price per square foot, this could be resulted in the poor sales. And some more, another one is that high premium products will be attracted to investor. Okay, investor. Meaning individual like us who have additional capital, we want to invest. We hope that rental will help us to repay back our obligations. But that's a cycle. That's a cycle. Now the rental rate, even at Mont Kiara areas. Don't talk about JB. JB is even worse. Mont Kiara area, they've been dropping in the rental rate. Okay, so when the rental rate is going down, it really clearly states to us that the investment is no longer fruitful at this period of time. That's why a lot of our development right now focusing on affordable, to have a good sales for the developers. And then the increase in cost. This is another area that I think most of the banks are actually looking at seriously. Developer ni selalunya, bukan developer lah, banker pun sama kadang-kadang. Kita look at the cost, masa nak bagi financing saja. Developer pun dia talk about cost during nak present dia proposal. Bila construction dah jalan, dia jalan je. Dia tak tengok, because project sometimes 36 months, 3 years, 4 years kan. Dia tak tengok lagi dah costing masa tu. Paku naik ke, pasir naik ke kan. Singapore ni tarik Singapore. Oh, sorry. Sorry, I thought it's all nations. Malaysia has already changed our outlook. Okay. I should bring a translator, please. Okay, during the construction period, normally the construction cost increase, because the project sometimes runs 3 years, 4 years. When we only do costing at the very beginning, or even bankers appraising the cost at the very beginning, we forget that during the tenure of the construction, cost goes up. Economic downturn. Okay, these all affect the progress of the development. I'm going to come after this how to look at this. Okay. These are some of the pictures where the project has been revived successfully by various FI. Okay, the proposed solutions is actually a lot, but I have to zoom into a few. The preventive measure meaning that these are some solutions during the planning stage. The first one, cost verified by independent QS. This is very important, which I mentioned earlier. Some of the banks, I think most of the banks right now, they have internal project management team already, you know. Because banker like us, we are looking at the financials. When the contractors talk about the S-curve, okay, all those, we blur, man. But we don't want to show that we don't know. So we say, oh yeah, this is viable, this is very good, but actually that's not the real thing. So what happens is that we don't want to go into that cycle anymore. Most of the banks, they have the technical people inside banks. They have a unit, some banks call it the project management team. A bank called MBSB, they call it the PMMD, project management team, consultant. These are people who have technical knowledge. They are engineers, they are QS, they are valuers inside the bank to help appraising the costing when the developers bring the costing to put the reality check into the costing. This one. Second one is due diligence checking on the contractors. Normally, when we do appraisal, bankers normally appraise the developers. The developers have completed certain projects, but how many projects they have completed, to date they have GDP completed about 1 billion. So we thought there's not even one project that's going to abandon. But I think now most of the bankers go one step ahead by looking at who are actually the main contractors that these developers are actually pointing. Because if the developer might have one project at a time, but if the main they have a long list of jobs in their hands, the same problem will happen again. The contractors will not have enough resources. Foreign workers has not been transported here in Malaysia enough with all those. So we move, not to say we move, we add, appraising the developers as well as the main of the contractors that the developers are actually pointing. The third one is actually minimizing capitalization, meaning that we're looking also at the equity participation by the developers. So the corrective measures, early detection. This is actually when we have a project management team inside the bank. What most banks will do is that every claims or every claims or every quarter or every half yearly or every annually, this team will engage with the contractors and developers to understand if things go fine or not. Even if the project suddenly have issues, because you cannot expect the project to go on smoothly, handsomely, beautifully. There will be a time when the project faces problem. For example, when they do a soil search, things looks fine. Suddenly, when they start doing the piling, there's a big rocks down there. So the costing of the piling will change totally. Last time, during my early stage, for example, my 5 years in banking, this and that, what happens is that the moment bankers will not really don't want to understand that. The moment the project start to delay, bank will stop the line, the facility. Okay. So when the bank stop the facility, the whole things ice ball to the issue. But now I think most of the banks have that team inside of the bank. So they'll sit down with the contractors, they sit down with the developers, understand the issues, try to find the issue. Okay, if the example I give you just now, we already estimated the piling cost how much, but suddenly the piling requires more because of there's a big rock underneath, or there's actually water running underneath. So it needs more cost. So the bank will happily look at it, appraise it, and if there's any additional fund required, bank will extend additional funds. So to ensure that the project goes on. So that's the difference between long time ago until now. Okay? And then the exercise step in right, meaning that sometimes, not all the time, sometimes developers, when they start the project, the sales start to shoot up 60%, 70%. They started to get accepted. Right? They started to get accepted. They start to use the fund that they have from the banks. Let's purchase other lands. I have a better opportunity. There's a land here, very cheap now. So after we finish one, we can start the other one. They start by investing in others. So the cash flow start to leak from the projects into others. So if that happens, we know that the cost of the projects abandoned is actually the behavior of the developers. If that really happens, then most of the FI will come in, step in, to ensure that put them back to discipline sometimes. Or even if it's things go worse, like Encik said, we have to find a white knife to continue with the projects. Right? So these are the corrective measures that most banks embarks on, although there's a long list, but this is some of the most important ones. Right? With that, I hope the slide and some of my explanation give some fruitful to participants. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Encik Norazam, for a very insightful explanation of what is really happening on the ground, on the part of the bank, and how they interact with the developer that they are financing, being the building society. So you should be able to explain to us the intricacies of how it, the detail and insight of what is actually happening on the ground.
So now, you must be the devil yourself.
So I would like now to invite the third panelist, which is Encik Muhammad Fikri bin Abdul Ghaffar, who is now the head of corporate legal services at Maybank Islamic Berhad, and also executive vice president of Maybank Islamic Berhad. Okay. And he also heads the corporate legal services department of the group Islamic banking pillar, where he oversees all legal aspects of the group Islamic banking activities in Malaysia, Indonesia, Singapore, Hong Kong, and other financial hubs. And Encik Fikri has amassed substantial experience with various other financial institutions, both conventional as well as Islamic. And prior to his banking career, he was also called to the bar as a qualified advocate and solicitor of the High Court of Malaya. So with that, I would like to invite Encik Muhammad Fikri.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Thank you, Prof. Salam to everybody, my fellow panel. I think first of all, I'd like to say thank you to the committee for inviting Maybank for this particular slot, because actually abandoned project is something which is quite close to the heart of Maybank actually, because our mantra is humanizing financial instrument bank services. So this is something which we can relate very closely to the buyers and to the victims of the projects. So I'm going to go on more on a legal perspective, not so much as a contractor perspective on this particular issue, because I think we are all once a home buyer ourselves, right? So this is something which to me is a big decision that we make in life. To get married, to have kids, and to buy a house. So I always say that there's two times where I go bankrupt is when I got married and when I buy a house, right? So we have this particular segment in the bank which we call high net worth folks. Dr. Aznan would know. Dr. Aznan, Dr. Aznan will quite focus. High net worth folks, ultra high net worth, where they can afford buying more than 1-2 properties. So these are not so much a concern as to marhain people like us. We got to save and buy a property, and this is a very big investment for us. And I remember when I first bought my house, very nice highway, all that, very nice construction. Because I look at the model dekat developers in the place. When I end up there, actually there's a lot of factories there. So some of my guests, when they want to come to my house, they patah balik, they retreated, because they thought it's a factory area. So these are the things where we are naive. When we go and buy property, we don't know. I don't know all the numbers that Azam flashes just now. All I know is that I need to buy a house, how much I can afford it. So, I mean, going to that, I would like to just step back, and look at the overview of the ecosystem, why this happened. Because from the legal perspective, I suppose it's important that we step back and look at how we arrived to this particular situation. So if you look at the ecosystem, we have all the key players there. I excluded some of them, which is not relevant to the discussion. And the main key contract that we're looking at here is the sale and purchase agreement, the buying of the property by the customer, right? Without that particular agreement, there's no bank. There's no, lawyers and all that. So if you look at it, there's developer, landowner. Okay, this is one of the victims as well, and also home buyer, the most known victim. Lawyers, which are involved in all the agreements, banks, and also suppliers, which is actually the contractors. Okay, so I'm saying here is that the key contract is between home buyer and developer. And when you look at the situation where macam high net worth, or maybe not high net worth, you just rent a house, for so long, 30 years, and then you nak pencen, when you want to retire, you want to buy your own property and all that. So you use all your savings. These are self-funded people. They pay for their own. There's no bank involved here, right? And also those government servants who doesn't go to the bank, they just get government loan for that matter. So these are a bigger picture when it comes to abandoned project. Not only those who take Islamic banking suffer, those who take conventional banking also suffer, those who self-funded their own hard-earned money also suffer. So if you have the bigger picture, it's easier to look at the issues, right? So now I'm going to move to the next slide. You see what happened from this ecosystem when it comes to abandoned project. You get the landowner. These are the folks who ended up inheriting the land, or they simply invest in the land. They have no idea about developing a housing project most of the time. So what they do, they JV with developer, right? So the consequences of abandoned project is that they will lose the land. That's number one, all right? Secondly, this is more pitiful, because those who are not advised by lawyers, when they sign the agreement, they got to give charge to the Beijing Financial. They will sign their life away. They are not limiting their liability only for the land. For whatever hutang or indebtedness of the developer, they will also be liable. So this is one area, and these are sometimes individual folks. These are not companies. Okay, so these are the contractors. They are also the victim, because they supplied the goods and then they've done the work, but there's no payment. And more often than not, these are the first people who will initiate action against the developer. Right? So they will start the ball rolling, make the developer go to court, wind them up and all that. So this was also a reason for expediting the abandonment of the project. Next one is the home buyer, of course. Loses their expenses, down payment or whatnot, don't have any completed house to go to, all right? And the worst thing is that they berhutang dengan bank. They are indebted to the bank. So this is something that they got to live with, for a long time in their life, paying for something where they don't have anything to go back to. There's no house, kadang-kadang when we pay our monthly installment, every month, Azam, I pay my monthly installment, but hati I sejuk, because I got my house, right? Even the house yang I bought last time, where factory lot and all that, I'm still lucky because I still got my house, right? Compared to those yang tak ada apa, they don't have anything. So this is the worst victim of all. And then banks, I'm sorry to say, banks are also victims, because we got defaulted bridging, we got defaulted financing. We can't do anything with the property because there's no property to do anything with, And then the worst thing is that we got blamed for the hardship of the defaulted home buyer. This is the part where we try to focus at, why blame the bank? 100% blame the bank, right? Of course, they are wrong, which I will explain later, but you must remember again to the ecosystem of the home financing just now. What started this, right? So, okay, lawyers and valuers, they got their fees up front, and in fact, when there's abandoned project, there's more opportunity for them to do recovery. So I'm not blaming them. This is the way they are designed. But these are the people who I don't deem as a victim, right? Developer, okay? Not all developers are bad. In fact, if you look at the numbers, there are more completed project than abandoned project. But there are some, who simply wash hand and walk away. They close down. It's better to get the company wind up, because unfortunately or fortunately, under the law of Malaysia, the true owner of this company are protected. If you read law, lifting of the veil, you can't sue the directors if the company is the one in entering the contract. So what happened is that they cut their losses. They cut their losses, and as Cik Azam mentioned just now, they have other projects. They can start using other people's name and all that. So at the end of the day, I'm saying is that they still drive their Mercedes Benz, right? And, so these are business. For them, this is business. This is not their long life dream. This is not something they hard earn money about. This is just business. Build something and then get the profit out of it. If it's not working, exit, right? So these are the scenario involving abandoned project. Okay. So we go to my next slide. I'll talk about the treatment by banks. Okay, not all banks are the same when it comes to treatment. I agree to that, but we are all guided with this issue, especially with Bank Negara Regulation. First, the thing once a project is declared abandoned is we will stop charging profit. Kalau konvensional tu stop charging interest lah. There's no more charging of interest or profit once it's declared abandoned. So we are left with the principal money that we have disbursed and also the accrued profit or interest that already generated before the declaration of abandoned project. And also for Islamic, okay, this is one area which I think causes a lot of confusion and also issue is when you deal with sale-based contract, right? If I sell this mineral water for 10 ringgit, I'm entitled to 10 ringgit, right? Irregardless the cost. That is not musawamah, right? Murabah. So when abandoned project happen, I must admit Islamic banker are quite late to react in terms of the sensitivity of things, because when we tell our lawyer, regardless of what happened, even although not abandoned project, you go for the sale price, because that's our right. But you will give rebate at the point of settlement. If they settle early, we'll give rebate compulsory. If they settle later than the maturity date, there's no rebate. So that's the concept. But when abandoned project happen, we don't realize that there's no full disbursement, and we go for action, we go for the sale price, which is very, very, orang kata apa apa orang putih kata kejam. It's not intentional, but it happened. We realize that, and when that happened, our action now is to make sure that if we go and demand for any money arising from a abandoned project, if we do go and demand, it must be give rebate upfront, because if a project has been abandoned, there's no future of further disbursement. We'll give rebate upfront, and we only claim for money disbursed. So that will reflect the actual worth of expenses or the indebtedness owing to the bank, rather than going for the huge sale price. Okay, so the fourth issue is is the thing blurred or my eyes are blurred? Okay, I thought my eyes blurred already. High blood pressure or something. Okay, tak ada Okay. Okay, you are all well, you are all not sick. So, okay, the fourth option is when you deal with a banker is that you always, banker has the right not to charge late payment charges, okay? Late payment charges ni is something that we impose for, people who defaulted. But I think Bank Negara has come up with a very fine, very nice definition of, they call it deserving defaulters. You can Google deserving defaulters. So deserving defaulters ni is people yang dia bukan sengaja nak default tau. They have hardship, death in the family, lost their jobs and all that. So people who are under the category of deserving defaulters ni, bank has the leeway not to charge them late payment charges, or in conventional the penalty lah. Alright. So these deserving defaulters ni, we don't charge them late payment charges. We have the right not to, yeah. So also on the fourth is the option to reschedule. Okay, why this is critical is that this will give time for the buyer or the customer to sort out what they want to do when they end up with abandoned project. How do they engage the developer, the government and all that. So when you reschedule, your monthly payment tu kita kurangkan tremendously just to buy you time. Okay, we give rate reduction, we extend tenure or moratorium, right? So another option is to restructure facility. This is by easing your monthly commitment, we turn it into something else. Alright, item 6 is where I think yesterday there's a slot for Cik Johan Lee mentioned about the Housing Development Act amendment. One of the initiative by the government is that the buyer has the right to terminate the same purchase agreement with the developer in cases of abandoned project. And what happened is that the developer has to refund whatever money paid. So there's two issues here lah. One is that before they do that, they must get bank consent. So if you a law student, you will learn about assignment of the property or charge about property. Once you do that, you have no right over the property in terms of dealing with the property. So you must get consent from yang ada hak kat sini is the bank, right? So bank must give consent. The only issue is this. The second issue is when the developer has to refund. Now I think my colleague panelists here would know, if a project has been abandoned for 6 months with no activity, kan, lalang pun dah naik, it's not easy to get developer to refund lah. Maybe developer dah pergi tempat lain lah. Right? So, but then again, this is the initiative by the government in dealing with abandoned project. So you can terminate your SMP. So number 7, okay, this is also something optional to the bank, is the moment a project is deemed as abandoned, you will then stop any legal action against your customer. See, although we say humanizing financial services and all that, sebenarnya bank ni macam robot, right? They see numbers, they don't see person, because they deal with a lot of numbers, right? So when somebody defaulted, they wouldn't know whether that project ni abandoned ke, ada masalah lain and all that. So they have an SOP lah, standard operating procedure. They will go with legal action. So when they go with legal action, then all this matter will then be subsided. So the only issue here that you got to remember is that there's a lot of option or treatment by the bank when it comes to all this. But the key here is always talk to the bank and do not ignore bank letters. So this is very critical lah. Because kita kalau dapat bank yang surat kan, simpan dulu lah, or don't read it and all that. So when you don't react, bank will proceed with the whatever legal action. And normally for abandoned project is because what bank do, then the whole thing got blown big, right? Because bank are suing the customers. Okay, so now steps taken by the bank. You have here managing abandoned project. I think all this has been mentioned by my colleague earlier. So we also involved in reviving projects and all that. So I don't want to talk about that. I want to focus more about this. Okay, this is one of the idea that we have when it comes to dealing with abandoned project, that we want to explore more within the Maybank group and also with the industry. Is going to the root cause of things is all about money. All right. Wherever you go in this world, we are doing a lot of banking business across the globe. Abandoned project is everywhere. It's not only in Malaysia lah, So how are people dealing with it when it comes to abandoned project? So you can do all sort of tricks, device and all that, but you cannot stop abandoned project. No 100% stopping of abandoned project. So one of the proposal that we have is to have an abandoned project takaful certificate or insurance for that matter. So basically, in a nutshell, when you have an insurance or takaful upfront to secure against the risk of abandoned project, this issue that we are having now are easier to manage because it's all about money. Who want to spend the money, right? So Kementerian Perumahan shall only grant license to developer with such master policy. So they must have it before they want to seek for license. And then bank will only finance people with license. So we know that once they have license, they have this protection for their customers, right? And then this could be designed to either compensate, maknanya bayar balik whatever you have spent, or you can use the money to complete the property for whatever reason. So it's quite dynamic in that manner. And then it can be made compulsory for specific project macam perumahan yang cost rendah and all that, or it can be optional for those who can afford to have additional coverage. So if it is optional for the customer, and then when they do not want because they want to save, macam I pun suka jimat kan, when you want to save, and abandoned project happen, so at least they have the ability earlier to protect themselves against this problem, right? So I can say that since Takaful also quite engineers, they have mudarabah concept where they can share or return some of the money back if there's no claim, right? So it can be made something which is also interesting for the Takaful folks. And this will be a very good source of income for Takaful folk because simply because the number of abandoned projects is small as compared to one completed, right? So this is something that they can explore further. So the proceed will end up first to pay all the debt. So if your project got abandoned beyond your control, at least you know the insurance or the takaful will pay for the debt to the bank. There's no bank chasing you anymore, right? And then also it can be designed to also cover whatever expenses has incurred by the home buyer. Down paymentnya, duit lawyernya, stampingnya, whatever it is, right? And then also decide simply to complete the property. So I'm sure there's cost to it, but that cost is compensated by peace of mind. You know, kalau I dulu baru kerja buy a house, I want to have a peace of mind, not ending up 30 years paying for nothing. So some people say bawa biawak hidup, biawak bahasa Inggeris apa? Monitor lizard lah. Okay. So anyway, sorry. This is the fact. Customer settle all that owing to bank, customer recover down payment, expenses, bank recover principal, tu yang I paling suka sekali. And then landowner doesn't lose the land, okay, or simply they can complete the property. There's money still that can be pumped into the project. So in short, before I end my presentation, this is something that we are very passionate about. If you look at faults, what causes this, there's 101 reason for a project to be abandoned. Banyak sebab. And some of these developers are genuine developer, tapi simply because of the situation, it become abandoned, right? Itu belum lagi gempa bumi, landslide and all that in other countries, right? So we need to start finding a solution, a quick solution that we can address this issue. Then one of it that we feel that workable is this, and because this is something that is being done in Australia, all right? This is called home warranty insurance. It covers defects mula-mulanya, but then they decided it also to cover where developer failed to complete a project. So it's something that we can explore and keep it interesting. I think with that, okay, I'm done. Okay, from go.
Okay, thank you very much to Cik Muhammad Fikri for his interesting discussion on this topic. I've just received a note by the organizer that we should end by 9:45. Well, I'm not sure because initially when we start, they said I have until 10 o'clock. So I was reserving 15 minutes for discussion by the participants. I would like to seek guidance from the organizer. Can we still have some question and answer session, or do we have to stop now? Mr. MC?
Can we get two questions?
Two questions, okay. So we can allow for two questions because I can see a lot of interesting points raised. Okay, we have seen one hand over there. Any other person who want to ask? Okay, so let me start with the first question first.
Okay, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi. I'm Razina. I'm doing PhD from Ahmad Ibrahim Kuliah of Law. I have two questions. One, what is the qualification for the purchaser to be categorized as deserving defaulters? Is there any specific Bank Negara's regulation for this? And then my second question, sorry, is there any obligation for the bank to check whether the project is completed or not, either on behalf of the purchaser or the developer? If the project is for the developer, if the project is stopped, is there any obligation for the bank to inform the ministry? That's all. Thank you.
Question, just one more.
Okay, Assalamualaikum. I think my concern is for the last speaker maybe is, as you mentioned, is maybe we can do the takaful if in the case of the abandoned project actually. So in that case, is the cost borne by the bank or from the customer or by the developer actually? So who will bear their cost actually? Thank you.
Okay, so please, I would like to invite, I think the question deserving defaulters mentioned by Cik Fikri, right? So maybe you want to say something on that?
So, thank you very much. I think I will tackle the first and third question. Boleh ya, Kenal? So the second question, you all lah. So, okay, for the first question, yeah. Okay, I'll make it quick. I think this, I love this question because it took me half a day to understand deserving defaulters. How can a defaulter deserve? You know, I don't understand, right? So anyway, when we talk to Bank Negara, actually this is only part where you got to look at the other side of the coin. We can't be robot. We are human as well, and we are also consumers, right? So there are situations where sometimes when your husband and wife and your husband is the only breadwinner in the family and he passed away, all right? This is something where unfortunate, and you must look at it differently than rather somebody who works, but at night they like to gamble, spend their money, and then you don't save, and then they have a lot of loans and all that, bad track record and whatnot. So these are the difference between the two. So this is something which is subjective, it's subject to the bank to decide who are these people, right? So for Maybank, and I think most of other banks, abandoned project is one of the unfortunate cases where it's no fault of the customer. And we understand paying for something every month that you cannot see is not easy, right? It's took a lot of discipline. So this is where we got to have a heart and and change the approach on how we deal with deserving defaulters. So there's no definition. It's up to the bank to decide siapa deserve, siapa tak deserve, right? So again, on the third question on the takaful idea, where this is still exploratory, but I know something where the bank should foot for the cost. I think being a bank, I have tons of takaful which I have to take required by Bank Negara, which is my fixed cost. So this is something which is sama dengan when you buy a house, is your MRTT, and those kind of thing. But then again, this is open to discussion. We can make it compulsory to the developer, Developer, you must subscribe to this master policy before you start any project to protect your end buyer and also indirectly to protect you. If something happened to you, your obligation selesai, hutang selesai, boleh mati dengan aman, right? So, sorry. So anyway, this is something that we can still discuss. Of course, if the developer to foot the cost of takaful, they will then factor the fraction of it into the purchase price of the house, which to me is still fair, because with that policy, with that cost, you can sleep at night knowing that, coming December, you boleh pindah rumah, you have that kind of peace of mind, and that peace of mind is something you need to pay for. And with that, thank you very much.
So either one of you can address, or both of you. 1 minute.
The question just now was that whether the bank has any obligations to inform the end buyers if the project turns abandoned. Basically, the bank who provide bridging finance doesn't have any obligations to inform the end buyers that the project is actually delayed or abandoned at all. Even the bank who actually financing the end financing will also doesn't have any legal responsibility to inform the buyers. So what we can say is that since you are having a trust in that particular development, that is the home that you want to be. So you have to also ensure that you visit regularly. I think that's from our point of view. Cik Nordin, anything to add?
Let me give just a brief of all. First one, we start dengan the obligations. I think if you look at some of the banks, that's the reason why when they finance a project, housing project, they also provide the end financing. The reason is simple, is to ensure that on one hand, they are like giving the financing to ensure the project completed, and the other hand, because they also end financing, they is acting on behalf of the buyer that the project is completed. So indirectly, in a way, it is being, there's no obligations, but the rights of the customers is being protected to ensure the project completed. That's the first one. Second, let me give you just my views on the takaful schemes. Who's going to bear the cost? If you ask me, at the end of the day, the one that going to bear the cost will be the buyer. Why? Simple. When the government make it compulsory for a developer to charge it, definitely the development cost will increase. Azam already shared with you in terms of the statutory costs that they need to bond, right? So they will bear it, and then they will put it inside the cost, and they will charge to the customer. It's a normal things. Okay, third one, deserving defaulters. Let me give you a snapshot what was being discussed back in during my days in Bank Negara when we first introduced the late payment charges. During that time, in the late 90s, only conventional that charge penalty, not the Islamic banks, right? So the result was at that particular point of time, a lot of defaulters benefited. Okay, they take advantage of what was happening. They pay the conventional loan, but not the Islamic financing. So that's one of the reasons why it's being introduced. And at the same time, we need to understand the word deserving is basically trying to say that if it is a genuine case where the the customer being defaulted due to certain unexpected reason, and they are really basically demonstrated that they have this inability to pay to the situation, the bank is supposed to take that into consideration and not to charge the late penalty. That is I think now is being redefined as the deserving defaulters. Okay, so that's about it.
So thank you very much for the response. Okay, so I'm getting messages because we have the Deputy Minister coming in very soon. So thank you very much to the panelists. I regret that we cannot have further discussion, but inshallah we'll be hearing from other speakers as well. So with that, I would like to end the session and thank again the panelists. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi
wabarakatuh. Thank you to our panelists and Prof. Engku as a moderator for the special session 2 just now. Ladies and gentlemen, as our gratitude to all panelists and moderator, I now would like to invite Associate Professor Dr. Azlan Hassan, President Association of Sharia Advisor in Islamic Finance Malaysia, ASAS, to present token of appreciation to our panelists and moderator. Please welcome. Kesana. Kesana. First one, please welcome Encik Nur Azam Muhammad Taib, Senior Vice President of Corporate Business Division MBSB. Next, Encik Muhammad Khairuddin Arshad, Chief Operating Officer Bank Rakyat. And please welcome Encik Muhammad Fikri bin Abdul Ghaffar, Head Corporate Legal Services Maybank Islamic Berhad. And last but not least, please welcome Your Berhormat Professor Engku Rabiah Adawiyah binti Engku Ali from IIBS as a moderator. Thank you very much. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, we take a break for a while as we are waiting a signal for our next agenda with Deputy Minister. Hopefully nobody leave this hall, inshallah. Ladies and gentlemen, let's start our program by standing up for the national anthem Negaraku. Thank you. Please be seated. Yang berhormat Senator Datuk Dr. Ashraf Wajdi Datuk Haji Dusuki, Deputy Minister, Prime Minister's Department. Yang berbahagia Profesor Datuk Seri Dr. Zaliha Kamaruddin, Rector of International Islamic University Malaysia. Profesor Dr. Muhammad Akram Laldin, Executive Director, International Sharia Research Academy for Islamic Finance, ISRA. Professor Dr. Khalid Ahmad, Dean, IIUM Institute of Islamic Banking and Finance, IIiBF, Honorable Deputy Rectors, Executive Directors and Deans, distinguished panelists, moderators, paper presenters and sponsors, participants, member of the media, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh, and a very good morning. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alamin. Wassalatu wassalamu ala ashrafil anbiya wal mursaleen wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'in. In the name of Allah, most gracious, most merciful, praise be to Allah, the cherisher and sustainer of the worlds, and blessing be to our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, his family and his companions. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the organizing committee, we would like to welcome to the opening ceremony of the National Seminar on Abandoned Housing Projects, Causes and Solutions, organized by IIUM Institute of Islamic Banking and Finance in collaboration with Association of Sharia Advisors in Islamic Finance Malaysia, ASAS. First and foremost, we would like to extend our heartfelt gratitude to Yang Berhormat Senator Datuk Dr. Ashraf Wajdi Datuk Haji Dusuki, Deputy Minister, Prime Minister's Department, for his presence this morning. Ladies and gentlemen, to gain barakah for today's event, I would like to call upon Al-Fadil Ustaz Zaki from Sultan Haji Ahmad Shah Mosque, الذي سيتلو علينا ما يتيسر له من أول سورة الفتح فليتفضل مأجورا.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إنا فتحنا لك فتحا مبينا ليغفرك الله ما تقدم من ذنبك وما تأخر ويتم نعمته عليك ويهديك صراطا مستقيما. وينصرك الله نصرا عزيزا. هو الذي أنزل السكينة في قلوب المؤمنين ليزدادوا إيمانا مع إيمانهم ولله جنود السماوات والأرض وكان الله عظيما حكيما. ليدخل المؤمنين والمؤمنات جنات تجري من تحتها الأنهار خالدين فيها ويكفر عنهم سيئاتهم وكان ذلك عند الله فوزا عظيما صدق الله العظيم.
Sadaqallahul Azim, Jazakallahu khairan kathira, Ustaz Zaki. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, I now have the distinct honor of respectfully inviting Yang Berhormat Senator Datuk Dr. Ashraf Wajdi, Datuk Haji Dusuki, Deputy Minister, Prime Minister's Department, to deliver his officiating remarks. Please welcome.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalam ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man walah. Subhanaka la ilma lana illa ma 'allamtana innaka antal alimul hakim wa la hawla wa la quwwata illa billahil aliyyil azim wa ba'd. Yang saya hormati Mr. Chairperson, yang berbahagia Profesor Datuk Sri Dr. Zaliha Kamaruddin, Rector of International Islamic University Malaysia, Professor Dr. Muhammad Akram Laudin, Executive Director, International Sharia Research Academy for Islamic Finance, ISRA, Professor Dr. Khalik Ahmad, the Dean of IIUM Institute of Islamic Banking and Finance, Associate Professor Dr. Aznan Hassan, President of Sharia Advisor in Islamic Finance Malaysia, ASAS, and Lecturer of IIUM Institute of Islamic Banking and Finance. Honorable Deputy Directors, Executive Directors and Deans, distinguished panelists, moderators, paper presenters and sponsors, participants, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and a very good morning to everyone. First of all, I would like to thank the organizer, and indeed, I'm truly honored to be invited to this auspicious event and a very important seminar on abandoned housing projects, causes and solutions 2016, organized by the IIUM Institute of Islamic Banking and Finance and the Association of Sharia Advisors in Islamic Finance, ASAS. To be frank, I'm not sure in what capacity I'm invited here, because this is actually beyond my jurisdiction. Perhaps the organizer feels that they want to bring me back to my old nostalgic memories when I was involved actively in Islamic banking and finance. That's why when I received this letter, I told my staff, I give priority to this only for that particular reason. Not because I can do anything to help, because indeed this is not my jurisdiction, especially when it comes to banking and finance related matters. Anyway, the issue of abandoned projects, or abandoned housing project, is not something which is new, has been there for many years. I think during my time in ISRA, we have conducted a lot of research, and in fact, one of the issues that I still remember and very close to my heart, because we prepared a paper on the rationale why we need to stipulate the IBRA condition in the contract, mainly due to our empirical studies. At that time, we had a very close collaboration with High Court Kuala Lumpur, and we gone through all the cases for the past, if I'm not mistaken, about 10 years. And 90% of the cases which related to the issue of Baik Bithaman Ajil at that time, it's very much on abandoned housing cases. And we feel because of this reason, even though IBRA is not supposed to be mandatory, it has to be voluntary, but because of these empirical evidences, we put forward our proposition to Bank Negara at that time to come out with a resolution to stipulate IBRA condition in the contract. But of course, that is only part of the solution to the problem, because at that time, before we have, at the moment we have the Sharia parameters in Murabaha. I think before I left the industry, I had the opportunity to go through this Murabaha parameter. In fact, I was heading the team at that time, because ISRA was given the responsibility to come up with all these parameters. And one of the important highlights or issues that we raised or we put in the Sharia parameters of Murabaha, that it should not be involved with any projects or financing activities which is under construction. So I think because of this, the industry has actually started to move away from using BBA for under construction financing projects towards other alternative financing. That's why there are a lot of other a lot of other courses, and of course we have this seminar, I believe, to find solutions which need to be addressed, especially when it comes to a lot of causes why this abandoned housing projects has been an issue for a long time. Among others includes legal lacuna, weak regulatory system, and the nature of contract financing. And of course, as we all know, Islamic banking is just like conventional banking when it comes to its structure. And to move away from the traditional way on how to do banking business is not easy, especially when the banking players are very much conventionally trained. And of course, when the issue of abandonment become big issues for Malaysia, and we found that BBA contracts may not be appropriate to be used as financing contracts for this kind of activities. Therefore, we have to explore other types of financing contracts, which includes, among others, musyarakah mutanaqisah, ijarah mawsufa fi dhimmah, or ijarah mudafah fil mustaqbal, and many other forms of contract, which basically it means Islamic banks must face different types of risk, and their risk exposure is no longer similar like what they accustomed and what they are familiar with doing banking business as financial intermediary before. So by entering into musyarakah mutanaqisah, for example, it's very much similar or very closely to equity participation, which requires bank to take risks, which is not commonly type of risks which conventional banks are familiar with. So these are among the things which Islamic banks must be prepared to be exposed to other forms of financing activities, which indirectly it implies that they have to assume risk which are not common or which is not familiar to them before. So in my limited experience in Islamic banking, when I was in Affin Islamic Bank, we discussed this very thoroughly when we wanted to introduce musyarakah mutanaqisah. And I remember it took us months to only scrutinizing the manner how we should offer a product which is closely resemblance the features of Sharia contracts of participatory in nature, especially musyarakah. And of course, we must fully abide and adhere to not only to the principle of the Sharia, but also to the spirit of objective of Sharia, or the maqasid of Sharia. That's why when we introduce musyarakah mutanaqisah for under construction property financing, it is actually reflects that bank must be ready to expose themselves to the real risk, and this requires bank to operate in different manner. In other words, they cannot just rely on the typical credit worthiness criteria when they assess their customers. It has to go beyond that. It has to go beyond credit risk. It has to cover other forms of risk. In other words, if Islamic banks want to introduce other types of contract like musyarakah mutanaqisah or even ijarah mawsufah fi dhimmah or forward lease, they have to make sure they have to have adequate infrastructure and capable personnel to handle these forms of risk. In other words, they have to actually be ready to be exposed and to assume risks which are no longer common to what they have been practicing before. In other words, they have to have a proper due diligence. They have to only enter into projects or financing activities with developers, for example, who are reputable, not just simply engage with any developers, because now they have to bear and share the risk with the customers. Unlike before, in the case of sales-based contracts like Bitaman Ajil, their concern is very much on the creditworthiness of the customers or the client who requires financing. And now, this criteria is no longer, I'm not saying that it's no longer relevant at all. It's still relevant, but it only constitutes perhaps 40 or 50% of the manner how they have to conduct their business. In other words, if they want to enter into equity participation based contract like musyarakah mutanaqisah in its truly form of contract, then they have to basically be prepared to be exposed to risk, and they have to be more vigilant in handling these types of risks. So this is only one part of solution. The responsibility and the roles of financial institutions. Of course, we have to also take into consideration other stakeholders that also involve or the culprit in these abandoned housing projects, which includes the developer themselves. And in fact, the customers need to be enhance their level of awareness about how, when they want to get financing with Islamic banking and finance, it is not just like, they go to conventional banks. Of course, this is a very challenging, because now they have to again make a comparison. Which one is better in terms of convenience, conventional bank or Islamic bank. That's why I said the level of awareness must be enhanced, so that especially among the Muslims, okay, there should not be an option for them when it comes to choosing between Islamic or conventional. And of course, if in the case of Islamic, they have to understand the nature of the contract that they are engaged with the Islamic bank. For example, in the case of musyarakah mutanakisah, it's almost totally different from the manner how the traditional financing, like sales-based contract, which was previously used by the Islamic bank. So these are the things which I feel strongly that this seminar can play an important contribution, not only to think and to come up with solutions on how to deal with various issues pertaining to abandoned housing projects, but also how we can actually come up with resolutions that can be brought forward to the government for their attention. And of course, the government need to be alerted as well about the nature of the manner how Islamic banks operate when it comes to this kind of financing activities. And this requires active involvement of important agencies, important stakeholders like ASAS, ISRA, as well as IIUM, and to be together and then lobby and strategically try to pursue this agenda with the respective government agencies, so that these issues can be handled holistically and comprehensively. So again, I would like to take this opportunity to congratulate everyone who contributed their time and effort to organize this seminar, and all who have been supportive to the seminar, including, of course, the sponsors, collaborators, supporters, and participants. Of course, I look forward for the outcome of the seminar in providing critical inputs to address the issues relating to abandoned housing projects in Malaysia. With that note, with the lafaz Bismillahirrahmanirrahim, I declare the National Seminar on Abandoned Housing Project 2016 open. Wabillahi taufiq wal hidayah. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you, Yang Berhormat Senator Datuk Dr. Ashraf Wajdi, for the officiating speech, and I would like to request Yang Berhormat Datuk to remain in front of the stage for our next agenda. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, as a mark of appreciation, I now call upon Professor Dr. Khalid Ahmad, Dean IIBF, to accompany the Honorable Professor Datuk Sri Dr. Zaliha Kamaruddin, Rector of IIUM, to present a memento to Yang Berhormat Senator Datuk Dr. Ashraf Wajdi, Datuk Haji Dusuki, Deputy Minister, Prime Minister's Department. We request our VVIPs to remain standing as a witness for our next agenda. And now I would like to invite Yang Berbahagia Professor Dr. Muhammad Akram Laldin, Executive Director, International Sharia Research Academy for Islamic Finance, ISRA, for a book giving ceremony from ISRA to Professor Dr. Khalid Ahmad, Dean of IIBF. And of course, next from Professor Dr. Khalid Ahmad, Dean of IIBF, to Professor Dr. Muhammad Akram Laldin, Executive Director of ISRA. Ladies and gentlemen, I now invite Professor Dr. Khalid Ahmad, Dean of IIBF, to accompany our VVIPs for refreshment. We also invite all distinguished speakers, paper presenters, honorable guests, and participants for a morning break and refreshment. We really seek your cooperation. In about 15 minutes after refreshment, we have to come back for our next session. Thank you very much.